Hello, everyone, and welcome to LFC Transfer Room. We're going to have a bit of a transfer central today. And as this says, we'll be live in a couple of minutes. And the main issue was Kev. Let's just blame everything on Kev. Kev, you were telling us about a lovely Father's Day gift you've got.
Yes, my lovely children. I asked them for something iconic, and they got me a World Cup winner signature, which is behind me, which is Pele. So well done, kids. 10 out of 10, 8-star in me good books.
That's any excuse to go out now, in the park, stealing your booze.
How are you, James? Are we all good?
I'm good. Yeah, right? I go away. Next couple of days to Greece, so I'm getting a stream out before I go. Tick off my quota. What about you, Drew? How are you doing, sir?
Doing good. No kids over here, but I have a dog, so it was Father's Day over here yesterday. But it turned out to just be treating the dog to like a Petco trip and getting a bunch of presents for the dog. So USA won last night, so that was a little bit of a watch. But I'm more focused on Liverpool's signings and hopefully something to celebrate this week.
Your audio's a little quiet, Drew. I don't know if you're near your microphone or if it's slightly different. I don't know if that's the same for you, Kev. Just might want to speak up a little bit, or I don't know if your audio's connected. You might want to have a bit of a look. But there's a couple of major rumours going on at the moment, isn't there, Kev? And a few that we're going to talk about today, which is the first one's Thiago to Saudi Arabia. I mean, it seems like it's the new MLS, isn't it? Because Ziyech is going there, Koulibaly's going there, Gerrard's gone there, Ronaldo's gone there. What do you think? Are you thinking Thiago makes sense? One last payday, a little bit of money for us?
Do you know what? Right, I wouldn't. You look at what, unless they're going to come with unrealistic money, and if you're looking for someone who is injury prone, doesn't play more than 15 games a season, and they're going to offer me 35, 40 million for them, I'd probably tempted to snap his hand off. But he's still one of our best players at the club for me. And even for 15 games, as it was mentioned in our chat, I'd happily take that and keep him in our team and then see what happens. But I don't know. Gerrard's come out and said it's all baloney. He's not going to Saudi Arabia now, allegedly. So it's the new place to be. It's the new China, isn't it? So but money talks, and everyone has is a commodity, and everyone has the price. And for me, if you're giving me 25, 30 million for Thiago, I'd be very much tempted to take it. But anything less than that, no.
But for a player like Thiago, I kind of see it gives him a long period of recovery. He's not playing week in, week out. Keeping with the Liverpool fixture list, and you're starting to break down, isn't great. But Drew, surely there's better places that Thiago could go. Back to Germany, he could play in France. He could go to the MLS, unless it's just one final payday. But Thiago doesn't strike me as that sort of player. What about you?
Yeah, it seemed like the move to Liverpool was kind of dictated what the player he was all about. Like, it seemed like he still wanted to go to a club that was challenging for titles in a new country. So it seemed like he was up for a different challenge because he's won pretty much everything there is. He's won the World Cup with Spain, the Euro, multiple Champions Leagues with Bayern and Barca, like everything there. He's won everything there is. So if he wants to take a payday, he's more than earned it and proved his legacy in the game. But his move to Liverpool is what made me think that he still wants to play at top level. I don't know. I think Kev said it best. The rumors are coming, thick and thin through Saudi Arabia links with players. But, with Neves coming out of left field, that shows that there's some serious money coming around. And maybe that turns Thiago's head. But I don't, as much in the chat, I was saying, like, if we receive an offer of 30 million or more, I'd consider selling him because that's significant money you can put to a player. But anything under that, I don't see him I don't see us selling him, and I don't see why he would go to Saudi Arabia if there were other offers on the table.
I mean, there's part of me that thinks this is just lazy journalism. You want some clicks on an article, pick a Liverpool player and link him with a move to Saudi Arabia because that's currently what's going on at the moment. So let's pick a player who doesn't look like he's going to fit in with the new system and all the new midfielders and everything that goes with that. All right, Drew, see you later. And then let's sort of put it through the media because that's what's going to get clicks. That's what's going to get likes. That's what people are going to be sort of interested in. There doesn't seem to be anything concrete in any of this. There's no reputable sources saying Thiago's going, there's serious interest or anything like that. All it kind of leaves us fans to do is just, like what Drew did, Kev, pick a fictitious amount of money and say, for that amount of money, you can go.
But that's what fans will do, though. That's the whole point of it, isn't it? It's to get a fan base irate and to get them in a debate and a topic of something that has no kind of substance to it, so that they hit what they need to do. We all have a fictitious amount for every player, regardless of who it is. And if that fictitious figure comes up as it does in Football Manager, then a lot of us will be going, well, let's take it and let's see what happens. Thiago undoubtedly is still one of our best players. I still don't think anything will happen, but it would have to be an unrealistic offer, and an unrealistic offer for Thiago for the age, the amount of games he plays is 25 million plus. And if you're getting that for him, for his age and for that can get you possibly another under 21 from South America in that Alan Varela, who plays for Boca Juniors. You could bring someone else in. It ties up money, but the problem you've got with that is you're losing that kind of creativeness that we all love and who utilize over when he does play. But everyone has the price, unfortunately, and there'll be a price, James, that you'll be thinking, I'd be tempted to take him.
What I'm really struggling with, I'll be honest with you, Kev. What I'm really, really struggling with is you're rebuilding a midfield. You need some really good senior pros to teach you how it's going to, we're linked with, McAllister's young, Vega's young, that guy from South America's young, Thuram's young and emerging.
Yeah.
You need some senior pros to really sort of teach you what to do and who are they going to learn more from?
Exactly.
Henderson or Thiago? Whose game sense do you want to download into them for a year? And you kind of want to download Milner's work ethic. All right, we've done that. That's gone. He's left. So now you need to take the next one. And Thiago's probably, when you look at all our midfielders, the one that has best tackle success rate, best pressing rate. It's surprising the number of stats that he's number one for because he doesn't have the legs. He's just got it all in the brain. So could you really risk stifling development, Drew, just for an extra 10 million that might get you an extra young player?
If he's a player that can teach youngsters, I think I said this in the chat that it's not every skilled player ends up being a good coach or a good mentor or a good manager. I mean, you just have to look at Frank Lampard, as a manager to see what he's like in the dugout. And I know that's a different role between playing alongside someone and then managing them. But I think Thiago is one of those players that the stuff that he does, I don't know if every single player can do that, like difference between Messi and Ronaldo kind of thing. Like Messi does some things that no other player can do. And, some of the touches that Thiago does, the way he turns on the ball, I think maybe that can be adapted by some of the more skilled players on Liverpool. But I don't know if Curtis Jones is going to pick up like everything from Thiago, let's say. I don't think they have the same skill set. So attitude-wise, like all of that can come into play. How he approaches the game, I think that he's still hungry at his age, what we talked about before. There's definitely some osmosis that can happen with the young players. And if that's happening, and if that's what Klopp sees in the team, then 100% he's worth keeping around. I think that's why we kept Milner around for so long, to get that osmosis in the team. So, but on the caveat, I'd say, as I said in the chat, not every single player who's skillful is that kind of person who passes along what they've learned to players or is able to translate what they can do on the pitch and get it to other players. So it really depends what's happening behind the scenes for me.
No, Daniel, you've put a great question in the chat, and please do put your questions in the chat. We will come back to this. We are going to talk about Gravenberch a little bit later. And if you do have any questions, if you do have anything you want us to talk about, whack it in the chat and stuff like that, and we will come to it at the appropriate time. Because obviously this is highly planned and thought through often. But one of the things that we do need to talk about is the right back situation. You know, before we get back onto the midfield, before we start to talk about like replacements and what's going to happen, the emerging report today is Kyle Walker. Obviously, Pavard's been linked, and he's a right back. You've got Connor Bradley, who's meant to be coming back from loan and playing. Ramsey has gone off on loan. He's not going to be with us. There seems to be, in the media side of things, but with some half reputable sources, Kev, a lot of noise around us being interested in right back type players. So does this mean that Trent's moving forward and we're bringing in a more defensive right back? Because I would say both Pavard and Kyle Walker are more defensive than Trent. Nowhere near as offensive, obviously. So does that mean that we're starting to look at different options for you?
We maybe are, although I don't think there's any legs at all in the Kyle Walker thing. I just think that's lazy journalism for myself personally. However, one, because I don't see him ever coming to Liverpool, and two, I don't see both clubs coming to any kind of agreement for someone. And thirdly, he's 33. So what are we getting out of that? Do you know what I mean? It seems as though Man City to be getting more out of it than what we would be. I agree that we are possibly looking. I think we're looking at alternatives. I think we're trying to bring a bit of versatility in at that right back, and something that can come in, that gives the release for Trent to play. I said last night, I liked it when the 18-19 season when you see him playing overlapping Salah in a way and playing that style. I think he's come on a bit since then, and I think we've seen. I know it was only against Malta, but he had an outstanding game for England. His passing, his distribution just shows how much of a great passer he is in that middle of that park. But I think what works well is that he plays in the invert, like part of a pivot, like part of a pivot in a way. But he needs that. It's more about the cover. For when Trent goes in midfield, for me, it's more about the legs that we've got and the engine room to have the ability to focus in that. He has Canate, who can make up great space with his pace. It's fantastic, but we can't just rely on that because it's still a weakness there. A right back gives us an alternative in certain games and in certain positions to do that. Now, whether that means we go out and get a Pavard, whether we go out and get a Timber kind of player, I think it's more of a versatile player that we need. So not one who's just solely a right back. There'll be another alternative to the game, like a centre back, or can play in midfield as well, so they can bridge that kind of weakness. It's glaring that we do have a weakness on that side, so it's obvious to try and put two and two together if you're a journalist and say that, that's one of the areas that we need to be looking at. It is key for me, but it's behind the main key, which is the focus of our midfield. Once we get them in, then we turn our attention to that weak spot for me.
Timber's an interesting one for me, Drew. I know Kev mentioned that, and there hasn't been many loud reports mentioned recently, but a bit like Fabinho, who was a right back and a defensive midfielder, Timber's a right back and a centre back. But if you're trying to, should we say, shore up our defence, someone that's got the pace of Timber, the defensive awareness of Timber, can play alongside Kone, Van Dijk. There's kind of logic to it. Someone like Kyle Walker, who, if we played a high line, could get back really quick. It makes sense because of how we play and to put some of those pieces in place. It's just I don't think we've found the right name yet.
Yeah, it's interesting to see all these rumors because we're not necessarily getting rumored with backup players like Pavard, starter for Bayern, Timber, starter, was it Ajax? These are good players, and that's where I'm kind of concerned with like players are getting linked to that are first team quality, and why would they want to come and sit behind Trent? Because I think at the moment it seems like inverted right back is still the role that Trent's going to be playing for us next season. I don't see why you would change that after the run of 10 games at the end of last season and having immense success with him in that role. Now, England, he started in the midfield, and there's that debate whether or not he could play in midfield, but I don't know, maybe if you get someone in early enough, that's something you could see in the preseason, but it's not a guarantee. And I think for that, on that note, it's like maybe we should be looking up for backup for Trent because we loaned what was it, Ramsey out already, so
Yeah.
it's kind of looking like if Trent gets injured, it's probably going to be Joe Gomez filling in for him at the moment, and I don't think Joe Gomez can play that inverted right back role versus Pavard. Definitely can get forward. We've seen him on France as well as Bayern. He's skilled on the ball, so that makes sense in terms of a backup option. But I don't know why these players would want to come into Liverpool and play backup to Trent. So that's the caveat for me. But that is like Kev said, I think we should be looking at midfield first and sorting that out after we get the midfield done.
Yeah, I mean, my sneaking suspicion is he's been put forward into midfield now. I think he's going to be playing that mix between sort of the Xabi Alonso, Gerrard role. You look at the pressing stats between Trent and Curtis in the last back end of the season. They were incredibly successful in sprinting people down and pressing them. If you looked at the clues always in Curtis's stats because he hadn't played all season. Obviously, Trent played most of the season, so a lot of his stats get hidden within there. But the pressing stats and the success, I mean, Curtis was up there in the top 5%, in the world. He's only played like 12 games, so it's not, deep enough comparable to say this is who he is. But the fact that they're playing together, the fact that you got McAllister, and also the fact that with that formation we were left open quite a lot still. I still think we were countered quite openly. Maybe Klopp thinks, well, against higher opposition, we need to be able to lock it down and give Trent the freedom to do what he needs to do so that we can impact on theirs, but we also need the defensive element. And from the sounds of things, I think you're right. Maybe Joe Gomez is the backup and we need first choice right back, Kev.
Yeah, but I think predominantly we need the engine. For me, we need legs in that midfield. The weakness comes through the fact that we've got the legs went in the middle of that park last season, and we started playing players in there that done us a job, but they were really a square peg in a round hole, if we're being perfectly honest. Like to playing Elliott in there. Jones playing far too deep. You see the stats with Jones when he starts playing a little bit further up in the midfield and what he can actually do. We were playing players in roles that we shouldn't be doing. And for me, that's where a lot of where our weakness comes from. It comes from when, prime example, Palace at home. The goal comes from 2 weak passes, weak tackles from our midfield, and then next minute the ball's played through and Zaha straight through on our back three. We need legs. We need the cover. We need that engine room. We need a young Jordan Henderson in a sense. Those legs that can just run round 100 miles an hour, win that ball, because I think that's what's missing. I think if we play the way we are, then we can counter that problem, and we have done it previously. It's just that injuries and an older midfield is the reason why they are now being more, highly seen as where our problem is. As well as that, we're also then seeing weakness down the left-hand side as well, because Robert wasn't being playing well as well. So it's not coming from one flank; it's also coming down the other as well. So it's more than that, because I personally would like to see us bring 5 people in. I like us to bring in someone for the right side, and I also want to see someone coming in on the left as well, whether that's a centre back or whether that's a backup to Robbo myself personally, because I don't think he has much kind of competition from what Tsimikas can do when he comes in. I am on edge half the time when he plays, but that's just me personally. But for me, right, wherever Trent plays, I don't think he'll predominantly be playing in the middle. I think he'll be predominantly playing at the right side. And I agree with what Drew said in the sense that we probably do need a backup more than any kind like a main starter. But the reason why I think Timber is because he can also play midfield as well. I think if you look at the players that we're linked with, especially in midfield, there's a versatility there that we have missed and it's been our weakness for me personally. Players who can play alternative positions, and I think that's needed. I think going forward, and especially for next season.
I mean, Kev talked about engine, Drew, and we need engine in the midfield. I'm just going to play a little bit of a devil's advocate. Let's say midfield. Let's say it's Trent, a Thuram or a Fabinho, or and then you've got Alexis McAllister. Now Trent has been up and down that right wing, full ball. Even when he's been playing inverted right back, he's been at the 10, at the 8, at the 6, back at right back. You know, the guy's got legs. Surely it's like having a creative Jordan Henderson, someone that's able to do all the running, get all the work done. So if you've got something that stops the leak behind him, isn't it the best of both worlds?
I think you said it a little earlier, where it's like we were still leaking goals with Trent in that inverted right back position, bombing up the field. And I think having that in there, like, I don't think that Trent is the best. Like, the debate is, can he play defense? And the answer is, well, he shouldn't be relied on as our defender. But I think Konate covers him in that position. But I still think it comes back to what Kevin said about we need legs in the midfield to get back. And I think just a defensive mindset in that regards. I think Fabinho at his best mopped up so much, like you called him the lighthouse, the vacuum cleaner, all these things were at the top of his game. We could just rely or take him for granted almost to just absolutely mop it up in the midfield, stop the counterattacks before they got built up, and really be that person in the midfield to stop the other team from turning it around on us. I think if you take him out of that side, Thuram looks like he could definitely help in that regards and get back and do the dirty job of getting back. But I wouldn't want that to be on Trent if that's the other situation of him being the one who has to track back. I think he's got the legs to do it for sure, but the defensive mindset kind of, having that innate ability, or I think we still need a player who can really just put the legs in, like Kev was saying, like a younger Jordan Henderson, who's just literally going to give it all for the team, but have a little bit more skill than Jordan, if I'm being honest.
I'm going to stick on it, and I'm just going to come to you, Kat. I'm just going to keep batting you off against each other. So on average, Jordan Henderson makes one tackle a game. Harvey Elliott makes one tackle a game as right central midfielders. Trent does treble that. And his pressing stats have been insanely good. Top of the third pressing as an inverted right back central midfielder, a position nobody else in the world can play. Having a right back, having a playmaker who's deep set and able to go forward, you could have a ready-made replacement in Thiago, because Thiago can play the playmaking role. If you keep Trent in his unique position, Trent gets injured, your entire plan's out the window. From a succession planning perspective, it would be suicide, would it not, Kev?
But it's also suicide to be relying on Thiago to play that playmaking game.
As a backup.
How many games will he be playing though? Because
if Trent gets injured, then you need him to play. If Trent doesn't get injured,
exactly. So your backup plan's gone if he's injured, though, isn't it? So but that's let's play right. So we're playing devil's advocate, right? So at the start of last season, right, your backup plan had gone because Thiago got injured just before the season started. So then
Trent
what's the
didn't.
backup plan? So then what's the backup plan to the backup plan?
No, but obviously you can have a perfect storm of both A and B getting injured, but if you've only got A,
oh yeah, it
then
is.
you've no
But
B.
but we have
And
a
so you are
unique.
100% relying on a player that can only do that role, and
Yeah.
that completely ruins your tactics.
And we do that every time that Trent is injured, because no one else can play that role. He literally over the last 3-4 seasons has had basically a free role in the fact of how he plays. He runs into midfield and goes around his business and mocks up. He has more he has more freedom of the pitch than the majority of the other players have. And that's because of his actual how good he is on that ball, how confident and reliable, and we rely on him to do that. I agree with you that relying on just him, you need a backup to that as well. So you need someone who can alternatively do that yourself. But we've seen it with since Klopp's here. There's no alternative to that. The alternative was either Milner playing a right back, depending if we're playing Man City or the team that we need to play, who are a strong opposition to us, or we go with Gomez. And we know what the fan base is like with that. Half the time, people don't like that, but that's what we come, and that's the boring thing. Ideally, it's like a Reece James. Ideally, you can offer the same kind, but I can't see Chelsea giving us him for about 20-30 million. Do you know what I mean?
Well, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But that's the problem you've got. It's unique. It's unique. There's not many other teams that have got it. Other people try and adopt that style of play. Do you know what I mean? But you look, the key to Trent's success is the cover that he gets, and how defensive minded people are in that midfield. It's more about the back five sorting that out than the front five who are meant to get back. There's an onus on that back five to be adaptable and be able to cover where that weakness is. You can have that with young players with an engine in there. If you don't have that engine and you don't have any running it with age, then you highlight the weakness, and then the weakness comes even more fluent through that midfield, which is what we've seen all through this season, and more evidence against Villa, because you lose the physicality game as well. You're seeing how Fabinho's tackles are a yard off than what they normally are, because he sees what's happening, but his feet aren't quick enough to get there. So we have a unique system with Trent. There's not an alternative to it. And I agree with you that, we should rely on other players like Thiago, but you can't put that kind of onus on them, because you're looking at a play that's fair. You're lucky if you get a third of the season out of.
I was going to say, if you're asking a player to make, in a 60-game season, be available for 20 games, that's not exactly.
No,
if you're getting paid that money, that should be all right.
Yeah, but I'll be honest. If I'm being perfect,
you can even split with Henderson. You can play 10 and 10, can't they?
No, but we can't pick and choose when those 20 games are going to be, can we? Do you know what I mean? Ideally, it'd be great with hindsight that we could do that, but we can't. We have to rely on him trying to get himself fit. That's why you need to have an adaptable midfield, and to take that onus off him to be available all the time. Ideally, with Thiago, he comes up with 20 minutes to go, and in games where we're difficult to break down teams that are going a low block against us, which will at times away will happen, and more evidently, more prominently at home as well. That's when he comes on and changes the game. But you should be relying on your first 11 to sort that out. And with Trent is a unique person. He's unique. There's no one like him. There's that many questions about him that there's going to be more questions when he doesn't play in midfield than when he does play right back. And there'll be more questions of why wasn't he playing right back than in midfield. So we're always going to have a catch-22 with him, sadly. But it's a lovely conundrum to have if you're a manager, though, because you it's all about how you cover your main weakness, which is behind them.
No. It kind of takes us onto the midfield debate, Drew, and we've got two main weaknesses, haven't we? We've no one that really covers Salah. We've no one that really covers Trent. But when we start to talk about bringing in these additional midfielders, the Thuram one's really picking up speed, and I'm a big fan of Thuram because his main thing is to take the ball from defence and drive through midfield, which is Liverpool's biggest weakness in the last season for me. The fact that no one could drive the ball through the middle of the park, because that's not Thiago's bag. He can distribute it, but we needed someone to drive. Is there, we're meant to be pushing for Gravenberch, we're meant to be pushing for Thuram, Kone's been linked, Vega, Lavia. So we'll start off with Paul's question, which is Kone, Thuram, Gravenberch, Vega, and Lavia. Which of the 2 of the 5 would you be choosing with McAllister? Thinking about all the problems we've just outlined in terms of trying to cover Trent, maybe McAllister can do that for a game. Maybe if you got Thuram and Gravenberch because you've got that sort of double pivot behind, maybe there's things that you can do. Which 2 are you taking, Drew?
I still think I'm going to go with Kone and Thuram from the original sources of who we're going to get. But I don't know, it depends how well Fabinho plays and what role he plays going forward. Because I still think we're in a bit of a danger if he gets injured or if he isn't up to, this form of the previous seasons. That's why I was wondering, I like McAllister. I think he's going to do a hell of a job for us. But I was wondering what was going on with the Caicedo bid, because Caicedo is definitely the type of player that we need in the team, and kind of struggling. Maybe Lavia but he still seems young, and Southampton seemed to be putting up ridiculous fees for their players even when they got relegated. So that's a tough one. But I'm just off of that list, I'm really excited by Kone and Thuram, and that's just personally where I'm at right now.
Personally, for me, I'm Thuram all the way. Just the more I've been watching and reading and looking at his stats and data, the more it's just this is everything that we needed. Probably more than Alexis McAllister for me. I struggle, Kev, with Kone because statistically he's not great at anything. And I've not seen mass amounts because I don't watch a lot of the Bundesliga and stuff like that. But I'm struggling with him. And obviously then there's Gravenberch, who is a very good player, but probably also isn't the type of player that can cover Fab the same way. He's more of a box-to-box type midfielder who may have, who the type of midfielder we break on a regular basis. Think Emery can and what we did to his knees. Who are you going with of the 2?
I'm it's hard with
Texas,
Gravenberch
really,
as well, because if you're getting Gravenberch from Ajax, from Ajax time, right, then you've got a serious centre mid defensive midfielder on your hands. The lack of game time is a worry for me at Bayern. And I'd be honest, if we're looking at midfielders to come in, I want them to come in and be on it from the start. I see with Gravenberch and probably with Kone that we're going to be spending a bit of time trying to get them into understanding how we play and bringing them up to speed. And I don't want this to be about that. I want us to be bringing players in who can go. I agree with you with Thuram. I 100% agree with the progressiveness that he has running a ball in a straight line. Sounds the easiest thing to do, but we, try and find a player who does it in our team. It's difficult, isn't it? But it's he's 6'4". He's a brute. He's a beast, and I've said it many times. The physicality we lose that battle in that midfield. You've basically got a Yaya Toure running with the ball, basically in midfield. That's basically what you've got, and who's built the same size as a Virgil van Dijk. That's making me feel really good about that. Kone, I am going to go with Kone, but it is much of a muchness. But I think all these names are going to be coming around in a hat until one of them or both of them sign. Do you know what I mean? But I don't know how far up the list Kone is over Gravenberch or Gravenberch over Thuram. There's how many people have been linked with already, and it's already a week in the transfer window.
Pick a midfield link him to
Exactly,
Liverpool.
but exactly, and again, going back to your point about lazy journalism, it is though, because everyone knows that Liverpool need a midfielder. So let's just name as many as we can and see how many of them the fan base want to pick up on. Sadly, transfers don't work like that. But you know, I agree with Drew. Casido would be the absolute belt of a player to be bringing in alongside Thuram. You know, you've got someone who's a defensive midfielder, but you've also got the aggressiveness and the aggressiveness of Thuram, who can run with that ball out of midfield if needed to as well. So you've got the all-round mixture there for me with those two. But Casido will cost you in excess of around about 80 million, and we don't spend any more than 40, do we? So if we're lucky.
I think it's like when your parents say you can have £20 a gift, but you'll have 5 gifts. That's pretty much where we're at, isn't it? I still like genuinely, Drew. I think if we sign a right back, Trent will be starting in midfield, and I think either Kone, Gravenberch, Vega, maybe none of them are going to be starters. I think they're going to be integrated into the squad, and they're going to be integrated into the team over time, because you've still got Henderson, Elliott, Jones, Thiago. You know, there's still a lot of midfielders that are available, and coming in from an external league, it is hard to learn Premier League football. So I think Thuram's a starter. Fabinho, forgot about him. I think Thuram's a starter, but I think if McAllister's a starter and Thuram's a starter, I don't think the third signing is going. I don't think you're going to be starting with 3 new midfielders. Not a chance.
Yeah, 100% agree there. And I think that's not the worst case scenario. If Klopp really wants to take in someone that he believes in the mold and kind of give him time to kind of ease his way into the team, because that's traditionally how Klopp's done it. Like Fabinho was done that way, Robertson was done that way. Now Diaz is the one exception, but he tends to take his time with betting a player in or giving them games here and there. And I think that's really like we're replacing Oxlade-Chamberlain, we're replacing Milner. But I think with the injury history of Thiago and Henderson, we needed to get in players like McAllister and hopefully a Thuram who can come in right away and take the starting spot. But aside from that, I'm actually excited by our cover. Like Curtis Jones, the last 10 games of the season definitely proved or put his name up for, hey, I can play a role in here, squad rotation, whatever it is. He's stepped up in those last 10 games. Bajcetic is another one who came in and said, like, yeah. So that's where I think like it's interesting with like if Fabinho in the last 10 games played a lot better than he did in the previous half of the season or previous 2/3 of the season, and he was one of the pivotal players in our title challenging years. So if that was just a little blip and sorting it out, because I felt kind of bad putting him under the bus, especially when the whole team looked dreadful and the midfield was dreadful, and he was starting with different people each week, that kind of thing. But I'm more along the lines of what you're saying of maybe the third one isn't someone who comes in and starts, because that would be pretty bold if we came in with 3 new midfielders starting from the get-go. But if we get Thuram and then someone exciting for a potential future role, or one we'll see here and there, maybe the old way of Klopp betting in a player, I think we have enough in the midfield by adding the quality of McAllister and a player like Thuram to be like, okay, we have enough, and let's see what Klopp can do with that. Because then, maybe that third player isn't, as expensive as, like the 80 mil it'd take for Caicedo, as much as that would be a hell of a buy and would improve us drastically. Maybe that's then when you look at somebody like a Timber to come in the defense, maybe, with question marks around Virgil, someone to challenge in that role. I don't know. I feel good about what we're doing with the team, and I'll feel really good if we get Thuram in, and then it becomes a bit of, what kind of icing do you want on your cake?
I completely agree. And I'm thinking, because like the number of midfielders we've just listed off that we've got, you sign another 2. Do you really think we need? I mean, I think we need 3, but would it potentially be better spent if Matip or Gomez, because neither of them were really available? Is it better spent on a defensive, like a Timber, a right centre back, and a centre back? Is it, are we being midfielder hungry if we've got 2 great new midfielders when really we need some defensive cover as well?
No, it's not.
Thanks,
think...
Kev.
Oh, sorry, Drew. Go ahead.
No, you're fine.
I knew I'd cock it up at some point. Sorry, mate.
No, go, Kev, go. No.
No, for me, right, and this is the worry for me is by moving Trent in midfield, meaning that we only get 2 midfielders instead of 3. And if that's the case, I think that's a way of cut shorting our options in midfield and to bring in the amount. I hate to be on the side of Damo here, but it does feel as though by moving Trent in midfield, that means then, well, you got your 3 midfielders then, and then you can move on somewhere else. I hope that isn't a shortcoming that we are looking at. I want us, realistically, you look at the numbers that we've lost. We've lost Keita, we've lost Ox, we've lost Milner. 3 players, 3 starting 11 midfielders in the squad. So we need to replace those 3. I'm not going down this route of the Wijnaldum where we'll bypass one pair, and then before you know it, two seasons down the line, we're in the same predicament because we've cut short in that area. That's for me anyway. Drew, you have yours say on me.
So, Drew, have we replaced? This is where it gets interesting. Has Curtis Jones coming through replaced one of them? Has Bajcetic coming through replaced one of them? At what point is youth development and actually them cementing a first team's place actually growth? That's what you want. You want someone young coming through to take the position. So have we replaced one of them in just our youth development actually coming of age?
Yeah, I think that's the gamble, because I think if you bring in someone like Thuram or McAllister and then one of them gets injured, like let's say that's exactly what happened when we brought in Thiago a couple games in, Everton injury, and he's gone for months. Like then it's kind of like, well, we really should have brought in one more midfielder. How can we rely on just that? So I think that's the gamble you play. I think it's one of those ones where, do you want to see the youth development? I don't think you can rely on Curtis Jones. I think he put his name in the hat to play a more substantial role in this season, but it could easily come out where, let's say, Thuram got injured or McAllister got injured and Jones gets more playing time than your Fabinho, Jones, and McAllister. Let's say that. And what if he's not fitting in? What if he doesn't do good? I think Bajcetic has a little more of a shout from his age and what he showed. You don't want him to be stifled in development, but at the same time, he's only 17, 18. It's not like we need him to it's not like the clock is ticking on him to come good in the next 6 months. So I think it's really what gamble do you want to play? Do you want to rely on youth, or you want to give youth a chance in a more optimistic term, or do you want to make sure that you have the cover and potentially tell the players who end up riding the bench just to stick it? There's players better than you are starting, but then I guess that's the danger for me, is if you bring in a Thuram and McAllister and then just say, okay, let's look at center back, right back, and one of them gets injured or both of them gets injured, because then we're back to last year's situation minus Ox, Keita, and Milner. So it's a dodgy one.
Milner, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just minus Milner. But I think that's why I'd be interested in Kone. Also, Thuram, it's widely known or put about that he's best friends with Thuram, so that could help with the betting in. Konate, a little bit of the French connection in there. But so maybe that's where we go back to what you're saying, where the third option is a player who wouldn't be a starter right away, but could be molded in and bedded in given time. So I think that we definitely do need another midfielder to come in, just on numbers wise. Like Kevin said, it's not like we lost 2 midfielders, we lost 3. And then you look at the injuries of Thiago and Henderson. It's not like you can, bet your house on them being available for every single game. Curtis Jones even goes under that umbrella. So I think we do need another midfielder, and hopefully Thuram's the next guaranteed, and then one more after that. But I don't think it needs to be a starter at that case. I think the same could be argued about injuries and position what we need with what you're saying about center back. Is Matip and Gomez enough cover for center back if Konate and Van Dijk pick up a knock? Same with right back cover for Trent. So I think those are the two. Like, I think if we buy a third center midfielder that isn't as expensive or won't bet in right away, but still have enough to cover on defense, that would look like a winning transfer window and covering what we need as best we can.
Potential over first team, and I think this is where if you put your Damo hat on, Kev, again for me, if you want to win a league, consistency is key, isn't it? And the one thing that you can't guarantee from a youth player or a developing player is consistency, because they're always going to have spikes of high performance and lows of low performance, because they're learning how to be consistent. So it'll be interesting, because for a lot of people it will send a message to how we're going to be, how we're going to approach next season. Are we just trying to get in the Champions League and sort of turn over again, or are we actually going to attack the league and go for it? Is that how you see it?
Yeah, it is. I see the first team and our young players having more opportunities of playing. I'll be using the Europa League as a way for the fringe players and the young players to gain the game match competitions that they require. You look at the start of the season, September, you've got the League Cup, and then the Europa League starts. So, depending on who we get, I'll be strategically playing our young players and the squad players in that, and keeping our main starting 11 free and available for the Premier League games. We're in a unique position. There's about 3 ways we can get the Champions League. If we finish 5th, then it goes on coefficients, history, and all like that. So there's an option of us being high enough to be in that. There's an option through winning the Europa League, and there's an option of just doing it ourselves in the Premier League. I think we go for all 3. I think you only play the starting 11 players. For me personally, in the Europa League, if it's to get us out of the group, I think we should have enough to get through the group, regardless of who we play. I think we are one of the strong favourites for that, if not the favourites to win it. So for me personally, there's opportunities next season, and the amount of games we'll be playing Thursday, and then after that, there's big games coming out after. We're playing Brentford at home, and after one of the Europa League games, Man City as well as another one before a game or just after. We're playing about 8 or 9 times a month, all the way up to December time. So there's plenty of opportunities for players to, especially the Finnish players, to be gaining that experience. Me personally, that's how I would go with it. May play your starting 11 and your main 11 for the league, and everyone else plays for the fringe, and the fringe players play for. There's no point in taking Alisson all around the world to play in the first round of the Europa League. Take Kelleher, take Adrian. There you go. There's your 2 goalkeepers. There's sufficient enough in those 2 to do that.
You're trying to give Damo a heart attack, aren't you? You are. You're trying to kill him off.
But it makes sense in what I'm saying. You're giving the fringe players and the squad players plenty of times and plenty of options to play next season, and you're gonna have a lot of time. Treat the League Cup and the Europa Cup in the early stages exactly the same, and then just deal with it that way. And only play your starting 11, maybe 4, 5, and 6 games, because they're required to, or in the home games only. that's the perfect. It makes perfect sense to me. We don't want to be part of the Europa League if we're perfectly honest. We're only going to be happy about it when we get to Dublin. Do you know what I mean? The semis. It's the same with the League Cup. I'm not overly. I hate it myself. I despise it, the early stages. But once you get to the semi-final stage, I'm over the moon. But that cup, you're playing that up until January. Do you know what I mean? And it's an easy way of getting into a cup straight away. Bang, there you go. But you play with the youngsters and the fringe players like we have done, and treat the Europa the same. We don't really want to be a part of it, if we're being genuinely honest. So let's just treat it like that. Let the youngsters play and put the fringe players in. And if we need to get out the group, then we play the starting 11. That's the way to do it. Our main priority is the league and doing it ourselves in the league for me. So personally, that's how I would focus the team and the squad for next season. I may be alone with that, but that's the way I see it.
What do you think, Drew? Or are you more on the it's good to play regularly and build momentum school of thought, or do you think there's a balance between the two?
I think there's a balance between the two. I think we should take the competition seriously. I know we have the back doors, as Kevin was explaining, like the coefficient could get us in. We should be doing it ourselves in the league, and that should be the first priority. I think we've said it on previous streams that top four is like the minimum requirements for Liverpool, and I agree with that. So I don't think we should be relying on competitions, but I'm always one who's going to say, like, I like to see us winning trophies. I know you two are older than me and have probably seen Liverpool lift more trophies, but I remember for a while it was, the League Cup in like 2012 for me that was like holding me by until we, started picking up in the last, 5 years or so. So I'm all for taking competition seriously. I agree with Kevin that you give the youngsters a chance, but I think back to that time when we had the Club World Cup and like that Aston Villa quarterfinal in the League Cup where we played like the academy team. I don't want to see that. I think our team has developed quite a bit since then, where you have the likes of in the previous years when we won the FA Cup and the League Cup, where you have Oxlade-Chamberlain and Minamino showing up and like doing a hell of a job to get us to the final. So I think it comes to a balance, but I always say that winning is a habit. So I think this is a chance to give youngsters and fringe players a run up. But as soon as it starts to get, towards the business end of the competitions, when you're getting to like quarterfinals in the League Cup, I don't want to see us throwing in, a bunch of youngsters and fringe players. I want to see maybe, I know Mo Salah is probably on the, at the door of Klopp saying he wants to play every single game. But I do believe that winning is a habit. And when we were in for the quadruple, I think getting those League Cup and FA Cups really gave us the extra energy boost to fight to the last day of the seasons, because it's, that's what you want as a fan. You want to see us making history. And I don't think these competitions should be taken lightly, because when you look back, the stats will say that we won the League Cup in this year, FA Cup in this year, the Europa. Like all of those to me are, those are nights that you remember. Those finals, I don't care who you are. You get up for a final, you're excited. You want to see us win. And I'm happy that we had started taking these competitions seriously. But I do think it's a balance, because comes back to not getting top four last season was a huge underachievement and embarrassment for the club. So that needs to be rectified.
Good point. And pretty much that pretty much rounds up Transfer Central. We've pretty much gone into how we should approach next year, as opposed to just staying on point with transfers. But it is me and Kev and Drew, so that's not to be so unexpected that we've gone off topic. This has been LFC Transfer Room. If you are new here, please like and subscribe to the channel. This is a fan channel made for fans by fans, blah, blah, blah. So please do leave a like and subscribe. Thank you very much to Kev and Drew, and I will catch you in about a week or so, because I'm going away on holiday. See you later.